The views expressed on Science for the People are not necessarily the views of this station, its affiliates, sponsors, or advertisers.
This week on Science for the People, we're talking about Frankenstein. It's the 200th anniversary of Mary Shelley's masterpiece. But what have we learned since then about life and about death? Let's find out. Hi everyone, Bethany here. What you're about to hear is a panel I moderated on September 1st, 2018 at the Dragon Con Science Track in Atlanta, Georgia. We got a panel of experts to talk about what Frankenstein's monster would have really been like and what Mary Shelley's ideas have brought us to today. Welcome to Science for the People. I have always wanted to do that. Made my day, especially you. See you afterward. So, I'm Bethany Brookshire, science writer at Science News and Society for Science and the Public, and we are here today because 2018 is the 200th anniversary of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein! AKA the modern Prometheus. And I don't know about you guys, but I read this book recently, actually for the first time, and it has it all. Chases across icy plains, undead things, murder, a lot of a dude sitting around in remote locations making terrible decisions. And it even has an audiobook narrated by Kenneth Branagh. I highly recommend. But it also raises a lot of questions about ethics, transplants, and whether or not the whole monster would be rotting terribly off his own limbs. And so, to take on these questions, we have today's all-star panel. If you guys would be willing to go down the line and introduce yourselves.
So hi everybody, my name is Lucas Hernandez. I'm a lead educator at the Florida Aquarium. I have my degree in integrated animal biology. On the side, I also have a podcast called The Science of Pokemon, where we discuss biology and animals. I'm really excited to do this with you guys because a lot of times we view these things, monsters, as, well, monsters, and quite frankly, they're animals, and I want to actually go into a little bit more detail on that a bit further on.
I'm Tina Saey. I'm the senior writer at Science News magazine, and my degree is in molecular genetics and science journalism.
I'm Trevor Valle. I'm a paleontologist, formerly the lab supervisor at Blueberry Tar Pits, and so basically I deal with lots of dead stuff. I'm specifically an Ice Age mammal specialist, and I have been to Siberia and digging out full intact mammoth carcasses from the permafrost. So, yeah, things that should or should not be back from the dead, and yeah, that's why I'm here.
Hi, my name is Nancy Miorelli. I go by SciBuds online. I live in Ecuador, where I do insect tours of Ecuador. So if that's something you might be interested in, come find me after the panel. I'm an entomologist known as the Live Bugs, and I will be here talking about the decomposition process of Senor Frankenstein and how he probably would just be a rotting faggot ball falling apart.
So I wanted to start by getting a brief read of the room. Who here has read Frankenstein? Who here has seen the Mel Brooks version? Yeah! Thank you. And I wanted to start by asking, who is the monster in Frankenstein?
Dr. Frankenstein.
Thank you.
Frankenstein.
Oh. Can we get a show of hands as to whether or not the monster is the monster or Frankenstein is the monster? So who votes for the monster as the monster? There is not a hand in the room. Who's voting for Dr. Frankenstein? You're all people after my own
heart. You know
heart.
you're on a podcast, people. They can't see your hands. Who votes for Dr. Frankenstein?
But I look great on radio.
Me too.
Now, to start talking about Frankenstein and his poor monster, who's, by the way, is named Adam because, of course, I wanted to talk about the practicalities. So can we talk a little bit about what it would take to create a human from spare parts? Can we start with Tina?
Well, to create a human from spare parts, that what they did in the book is they went and found the best parts from many different people and put them together.
Found. Found is in air quotes. Found.
So the problem with that is that humans and pretty much all animals have what's called an immune system. And the immune system's job is to determine what is a normal part of your body and what is not. And what is not can be things like viruses and bacteria and other stuff that would make you sick and that you would want to kill and get out of you. But if you're doing a transplant or you're sewing together many different body parts, what you have is an immune system that would be very confused because it would say, okay, this is me and that is not, so I need to get rid of that. And in the monster, there would be many probably immune systems from all of the different bones because they each contain bone marrow, which is where your immune system cells come from. And so all of these immune systems will be fighting each other in order to get rid of the other. So this guy would be having really, really serious problems. I mean, talk about fear of rejection. The poor guy.
I get it.
So there are things you can do in the real world. I mean, people often have transplants. So you can load them up with drugs. In his case, that might be a problem because you would probably need so many drugs that then your immune system would no longer be able to fight off the viruses and the bacteria and the fungus and everything else that can make you sick. And there are several other strategies that people are exploring right now to try and prevent rejection. And one of them, interestingly, is transplanting bone marrow along with the transplanted organ from the donor into the recipient. And this creates what they call a chimera. So a chimera is a mythical beast that has the head of a lion and the body of a goat and a serpent's tail. So anything that is a conglomeration of several different animals or parts is called a chimera. So these chimeric immune systems will recognize the transplanted organ as part of your own body. The problem with that is that then sometimes the transplanted immune system tries to reject the whole body. So
It sounds like a series of very bad dates.
Yeah.
I don't think this relationship is going to go well.
Yeah, so, he might be able to negotiate all of his different factions, may be able to come to some sort of agreement and get along after all. But I still think that rejection is going to be a major hurdle for piecing together a body from other bodies.
Further, it makes me wonder, so, you mentioned bone marrow transplants potentially helping to control the immune system reaction, but that's involving a transplant and a recipient. If you're putting together a body from spare parts, who is the recipient here?
Everybody.
Everybody's, yeah.
Well, and I think the recipient would be whoever has the most bone marrow in the game.
So is that the femur?
Femurs, spines,
hips, maybe.
Hips,
yeah.
Hips, yeah, that's it.
And those hips lie.
So, speaking as we're talking about which body parts happen the most, we're talking about where we got these body parts, because these body parts, I love how Dr. Frankenstein puts this thing together, because in the book, he basically just collects parts over a period of months and leaves them in his attic, just sitting there, where yeah. Who wants to talk about decay?
I do. So at my time at the University of Georgia, I taught a forensic entomology class. And forensic entomology, if you like CSI, is basically you can tell how long a body has been dead on the side of the street based on the maggots that are crawling out of it. So here's a little bit of insect biology. So insects, their growth rate is dependent on the temperature. So if you have your graph of growth rate and faster your maggots develop. A female fly, who's a blowfly, is the first one to even smell it, can smell a dead body within minutes from up to 12 miles away. Yeah, crazy. So when they get there, they lay their eggs between 50 and 200 at a time. So you have a lot of flies in Finger Frankenstein's attic, laying a lot of eggs on a lot of dead parts. They hatch relatively quickly, within a couple days, depending on the temperature, and some flies even lay they have the eggs that pass through them, and then they actually just lay maggots on the body. So things like rivers of maggots are things that actually happen to forensic entomologists when they're discovering and opening up bodies. So they're there for quite a time, we'll say. These parts can be anything from having eggs on them, so if you put them together, you don't even have to worry about the immune system because, in a couple days, the maggots will just be eating it apart. They could be in the stage where the skin is literally crawling because of all the maggots inside of it, or you can get to a part where there's actually nothing left but skin and bone, and there's no muscle to move the monster because the maggots have literally eaten the entire thing out. So if they manage to walk at all, if he did, he would basically be a walking, drooping, looping maggot ball.
I hope that there's like an entomology death metal band called Rivers of Maggots.
So in our forensic entomology class, the students actually got to put pigs out and see the decomposition process, and we let the students do whatever they wanted to them. So some of the students hacked it up into pieces, some people closed it. You got to really see the student's personality in that experience.
That is so metal.
Yeah, and so one of them, the one that they ripped up, there were so many maggots in the leg of the pig that they actually moved it a couple feet because there were literally thousands of maggots.
So awesome.
This is the part where I'm glad that I don't drink Dragon Con. And we have another expert here on death and decay. Trevor?
I'm just trying to think of what I would do with one of those pigs. This could make it interesting. Yeah, death and decay is a really fun and cool thing. I deal with dead crap all the time. But it also, like you said, with the ambient temperature and all that. But the interesting thing is how the flesh is preserved at all. When you have, for example, with mammoth carcasses, they're trapped in permafrost. So it's they still have hair and muscle fiber and all that, but mammal skin doesn't like to freeze. All the cool juices inside a cell create ice crystals, rupturing the cell walls. So Dr. air quotes, Frankenstein, if he would have, say, frozen them up in the attic, it's they don't want to be a maggot ball, I'm going to freeze them. Well, then as soon as you take it out, the entire thing begins to denature and melt. Recovering mammoth carcasses, we chiseled it out and brought it into the sun and started working on it, and then you ended up with parts of it liquefying. So, yeah, it's kind of gross.
So, what did it smell like?
Oh. Well, at first there was no smell because it's frozen. As it slowly started warming up, you got this kind of that sweet, almost cloying smell of death. And then it smelled like a large explosion went off at a Ringling Brothers circus show in the middle of the summer in a hayfield. It's hard to actually describe the smell. Because I've smelled some really horrible things in my life. That was probably the top. But yeah, it was like a barnyard abattoir meets a grassland. It's just kind of okay, the sweet smell of death and oh god. And then when we finally got to the back end of the mammoth, we found out that the back was missing. So it had been eaten away by predators. So unfortunately, the upper gastrointestinal tract was exposed. So then you have 35,000-year-old forms and greenery and all that. Suddenly, that were half digested, going, I've got oxygen now. Yay! Yeah, then I stick my hand elbow deep into the mouth. Oh, no, that's later.
I have something to add to this as well. Even if you don't have the insects or your mammoth or carcass just kind of liquefying, so if you did manage to have it, fresh-ish, and you managed to keep all the flies off of it, there's still bacteria. And so we still talk about this part of the process where at first you just have like the dead thing out called the fresh stage. And then you got what's called the bloat stage, which is if the creature is together, there's so much bacteria producing so many gases that the thing literally goes whoop, like a balloon. And then, as you can imagine, eventually it pops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, having seen that, like, is also quite disgusting. And that's, like, you'll literally get a slit, especially kind of like the stomachy area, you'll get, like, a slit, where all the gases have now escaped, and inside is usually, like, liquidy and gooey, so even if you don't have maggots in there, you still have, like, liquidy, gooey, used to be flesh stuff just kind of oozing and pouring out of your limbs and or corpses.
They've had this issue with whales in the past, where whales have washed up on the beach, and there was one in Japan, specifically a sperm whale. They were trying to transit it to a museum while they could have a chance. Unfortunately, that time bomb went off in the middle of a crowded city. Whale chunks and went everywhere.
Like, I was just going to mention that.
I know,
you want to see this? Google whale explosion. Well, no. You can't Google whale explosion because then you get the one in Washington when they try to load up with dynamite.
Yeah, that one.
But yeah, no, look up Japanese whale carcass, and it just goes...
As you can see, we have a very interesting internet search history.
Yes.
So who's hungry?
Yo, like always.
Android, new browser, incognito mode.
Now, luckily for, I guess, all of us, in this book, the monster isn't dead, so, in theory, it's brought back to life. And what I found particularly interesting upon my rereading of Frankenstein is that it's actually not specified how that happens. He talks about learning secret techniques to bring this monster back to life, but everyone just kind of assumes that it was electricity. Yeah. Can we talk about that a little bit? Does that work?
Well, one of the reasons that people assume it was electricity is because Mary Shelley, in one of her forewords to the book, said that the book was inspired by learning about galvanism. So galvanism is biological electricity, and the properties were discovered by Luigi Galvani. Now, he had touched electrodes to frogs' legs, and they twitched. Well, his nephew took that a little bit further, and there was a convicted criminal who was hung. He was dead, and the nephew got a hold of this guy's corpse and got permission to do this, and he did a series of electrical shocks, and there's a passage describing what happened. On the first application of the process to the face, the jaws of the deceased criminal began to quiver, and the adjoining muscles were horribly contorted, and one eye was actually opened. In the subsequent parts of the process, the right hand was raised and clenched, and the legs and thighs were set in motion. So there was this whole notion that, maybe dead people weren't really dead because all you needed to do was apply a little bit of electricity and bring them back. And at the same time, around the same time, the Humane Society was founded in England, and you may be wondering what pound puppies have to do with this. Well, the Humane Society was not about rescuing animals. It was about resuscitating people. And they were trying to get people to go out and find people who had apparently been drowned and, resuscitate them, bring them back. And they would pay you, and you would get extra money if your resuscitation actually worked. So there was this whole idea
But you still get paid regardless.
Yeah.
You just get more if it works.
That there's not really like such a big boundary between life and death. And apparently Mary Shelley's mother was one of the people who was resuscitated against her will because she had tried to commit suicide and had been brought back. There was a great fear around this time that people would be thought dead when they really weren't, and then they'd be buried alive. So around this time when she was writing the book, there was a very thin veil between life and death, and it seemed plausible that a little jolt of electricity could maybe pierce that veil.
So, speaking of buried alive, or rather just buried in general, of course, where does he, Dr. Frankenstein, gets these parts and he stores them in the attic, but he has to get those parts. Can we talk about grave robbing?
Sure. If I can just interject for the last thing about electricity, if anyone's a science teacher, you can actually take a cockroach and take a cockroach leg and hook it up to an electrode and play music, and the cockroach leg will wiggle in time to the music.
I highly recommend the Backstreet Boys for this.
Yeah, highly recommend. You can YouTube that, and you can just get kids with all the pieces, including cockroach.
Let the leg twitch.
Yeah.
I just have to say something real quick. It was like, can we talk about grave robbing? You're like, yes.
Yeah. So, like I was
Do
saying,
you want to swap seats?
I don't personally do the grave robbing, but so in Ecuador, great. So in Ecuador, yes. So there's a very big dynamic, or a big kind of breach between the upper class and the lower class. And you can see this everywhere, from the very fancy malls that are in the city all the way down to the little tiendas, we call them, where you buy vegetables from that one, and your pig goes from that one, and your pig from that one, and down the street. So in these poorer areas of Ecuador, you don't have all of the same burial techniques as we do here. There is no embalming. There's a lot of rituals around the dead person. In some of the Andean regions, they'll still have the dead person in the house for 3 days before they bury them, and that's the chance for everyone to come and see the person. So you don't have the typical embalming, and then you're just put in a very simple coffin and then paraded through the streets, so everyone in the town can also parade behind you and have a big fiesta. And then you're just either you're buried in a shallow grave, or you're buried in just in your box, and then there's a concrete box, and they just slide the box in there. And if you are really special and fancy, then you get a little nameplate. So, because there's no embalming, the body will just naturally decompose. So after about 5 years, it's not uncommon for students and people who are trying to become doctors to go and steal the bones for scientific study. So this is actually a thing that still happens in the world, which when I thought everyone was lying to me when they're like, oh yeah, people just steal the bones. And they said it so casually, oh yeah. And then they're like, oh yeah, you see that one, how that one's empty? Yeah, someone stole that 2 years ago. And I was like, what about that empty? And they're like, yeah, that one too. And I'm like, what? So grave robbing is actually still a thing that happens.
Man, I missed all these places when I was in Ecuador.
And you want us to go visit because...
As long as you don't die and get buried there, you're fine. Your bones will not be stolen.
I was dealing with soft bones, so I wanted to meet people I don't want to meet with people because that's cool though.
I will graciously decline.
That's a hard no.
Graciously.
So, assuming, we're going to go ahead and make a whole bunch of assumptions here. We're going to assume that we get some parts. We're going to assume that those parts stay fresh enough, long enough to put them together. We're going to assume we can bring the whole thing back to life. And then we're going to assume that it's all not going to reject itself violently. Presumably. Once we have this creature, Frankenstein doesn't do a good job with his creation. Do you want to talk about that, Lucas?
Yeah, so one of the things you learn, the Florida Aquarium is one of a group of people called the AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. The Georgia Aquarium and Zoo Tampa are part of them. They are an organization that takes all the different zoos and aquariums around the world, and they will tell them the best standards for the animal to go above and beyond that. The best example I have, the room we're in right now, by the United States Department of Agriculture standards, I could fit 2 tigers in here, so long as it has shade and it has the plate and double fencing system. It doesn't need much. That's why there are more tigers in American backyards. The point I'm trying to make with this is that I've studied some of these standards, and I can tell you right now, like, the problem with Frankenstein, a lot of monster movies, is that we're treating them like monsters. Frankenstein is not a monster. What you made was an animal, and you're not treating it well. My favorite example of this for Frankenstein is, 1, freaking out and running away. Not a great plan. For starters, you created a social animal, and you're freaking out in front of it, and you're scaring it, you're just abandoning it immediately. This animal that has no recognizable other traits. It's partially human, but how much of that brain is actually functioning on a human level? But we tell through the story that this animal is social. Enrichment is what we give to animals, things like otters, things like lemurs, these things that need social, something active to do, and they need these better social communication. He just made one of these things. Obviously, Frankenstein is asked to make another one further down the line, but he should have been thinking that immediately when you're making a social animal. He's keeping it alive, but, like, if you notice, can anyone here name me a monster movie where the monster actually lives comfortably after it's made? Does it have its proper habitat? What's Frankenstein's diet anyway? What are you giving it for enrichment? What's its bedding like? These are the questions I'm asking. Are you using positive reinforcement training? Because I don't think that's positive reinforcement running away. What is that? Negative reinforcement?
One could argue Godzilla.
Yes, one could argue Godzilla. It's one of those things, like, Godzilla does make it away from the city, but, like, he's not made by man specifically for the purpose of being made by man. He's made on accident. But a lot of the monsters, like, behold, the man shark monster. Oh no, it turned on me. Why? I'll tell you.
I wonder.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because you didn't treat it like an animal. You tried treating it like a monster, shoving it in a cage and poking it with a stick. Like, no animal likes that. If you've ever met an otter before, yeah, if you don't give them enrichment, they will rip you apart. Otters are jerks. But again, if you give them, like, the proper structure, if you give them, like, these things to enrich their lives, you give them the right training program, you can work wonders with Frankenstein. You can work wonders with otters. We have otters at the Florida Aquarium that will literally sit still for us and take eye drops. Like, they'll just stand there and they'll stare up and they'll take eye drops, they'll get a piece of food. That's the training that can be done to help with Frankenstein. Like, oh, you didn't smash that table. Cookie? Whoa. You brought the villager here and you snapped a snack. Okay, well, you're not being rewarded for that. We're going to ignore that behavior until you do a more positive one. It would get results. And in the end, you would have less of Mary Shelley Frankenstein and more of a Mel Brooks putting on the Ritz Frankenstein. Like, that's how it's done. Proper training can make this monster not a monster, but a functional member of society or a people zoo.
So we go from positive reinforcement to tap dancing lessons.
I mean, like, have you seen what we've done to chimpanzees in some places? Like, there's some guy who taught a chimpanzee black belt karate. I'm thinking if he can pull that stunt off, I think we can get him to tap dance. Because it does show high coordination. And that's actually really important, that functionality. If we're all saying that this animal is holding itself together, that would be a pretty good test of all of its ligaments and all of its joints and all of its muscles. Any animal can be taught how to walk on 2 legs if it has the proper bone structure, but to actually be able to coordinate and do it well, that'd be a really good test to see what would happen to it. And it would also make some money because, as most scientists know, it's really hard to get that grant money sometimes. And if I have to make my creation tap dance, putting on the wrist, then by God, I'll do it.
This sweet image in my head of, Dr. Frankenstein and Adam playing catch. One summer day, just like,
small child.
Yeah. Well, sure. But just like throwing it, like, and then like throwing it back. And it's just like, that's so touching.
If only Frankenstein had been a decent father figure, is what I'm hearing.
21.
Well, you know what? There are lots of people still fathers at 21 and they still manage better than he did. They don't go running for the Orkneys.
No, really. There's no redeeming factor on this one.
It really all boils down to Dr. Frankenstein and his treatment of this creature. Because, again, it all boils down to him. He was the one who took the time and energy to make it. And then he let it loose upon the world, not realizing what he did. And that's something that a lot of people do. You could say the same thing with pets. Like, if you get a dog and you just have it in your house and you don't take the proper care of it, yeah, it's going to get a little nuts, it's going to get sick, or it might hurt somebody. It's pretty much the same thing, except instead of, like, biting the neighbor, it's going to rip somebody in half. Which could be said about some other animals people keep as pets. Please don't keep tigers as pets. Please, I'm begging you.
I make this point because in our live insect zoo, we actually have tarantulas, and people usually freak out about the tarantulas. And I'm like, no, we've had it as a little spiderling, like, we've trained it, it knows how to behave around people. Yeah, and yes, the response I normally is like, wait, what? You can actually train them? And yeah, I tell people all the time that if I went into the wild, I wouldn't pick up a wild tarantula, just like I wouldn't pet a stray dog. If you go to your friend's house, you're going to go pet his German Shepherd, you're basically coming over to your friend's house where I just happen to have a tarantula that has, former legs.
So my question, though, is spiderling?
Yes, it's the name for a baby spider. Isn't it cute?
We train stingrays at the aquarium too. A lot of people have this idea that animals that aren't like primates are dumb. No, we target train those fish. They come right to us by species, knowing exactly where to go. We taught them to get caught in a net just to pull them up to do medical workup on them. It's not that hard to teach an animal how to do something. How did this man not figure it out?
I got a monitor lizard. He was dog trained. You call.
I would say we're kind of coming to the issue of the fact that Frankenstein did this because he could. Not necessarily because he should. And so I would like to talk a little bit about shoulds, and I would like to start with things like organ transplants, because of course this whole thing began with a massive whole body transplant. So, for example, you might be aware that there's a dude whose name is escaping me right now, who wants to do a head transplant?
Yeah. He's in Italy. he has a patient who is paralyzed. And so he wants to do what's being called a head transplant, which is really a body transplant because it would be the guy's head on a different body. And he thinks he can do this because, they've done it with dogs and mice, and he actually did a successful transplant on a cadaver.
Why are there quotation marks when you said successful?
Because he was already dead.
The way I like to describe this is that he performed a successful head transplant where nobody died. To which I say, give me a scalpel, 2 bodies, in 14 hours, and I'll do the same thing. Yes, he declared it a success, and I believe he published it somewhere. But yes, so the question is, if you're going to do a head transplant, or a transplant of any kind, what kind of hoops do you need to jump through as a scientist that Frankenstein completely failed and should have been fired for not doing if he'd had a job, which he didn't?
First of all...
Sanitary workstation.
Right, first of all, safety. Safety has to be paramount. So you have to... and a standard of care as well. You can't be doing something that is not going to be an improvement upon the current state of medicine, which I guess, in the early 1800s, the current state of medicine wasn't necessarily.
It was things and alcohol, morphine, and morphine and alcohol.
Just hold this leech here for a while.
What's that? Runny nose? Cocaine will fix that right up for you.
So actually, the leeches might have helped with get the blood flow going again.
True.
Yeah, that might actually have been beneficial.
Wait, are we justifying him now?
No, I'm suggesting how he could have done better.
Yeah, right, yeah.
We're justifying the leeches.
Yeah, leeches should be justified. They're actually really cool. Yeah, they are still used, absolutely. On skin transplants and stuff like that in order to get the blood flow. Absolutely.
Maggots are also still used in medicine to clean out wounds because they secrete an antibacterial bit. And they won't eat the live flesh, yeah.
Don't worry, you're anesthetized. You don't need to know. You don't need to see it.
Or it's under a dressing. They do that with large wounds, they actually pack them under a dressing. For maggot wound debridement is what it is called. But also, so Frankenstein's monster was brought back from the dead, and as someone who has faced the question of bringing things back from the dead, Trevor.
Jurassic Park is not a documentary.
Yet.
Do you need a hug?
The mosquito is a crane fly, and the mosquito is a crane fly.
Thank you. That is a crane fly in that.
It doesn't even have blood.
No.
They don't even drink blood, so.
That's okay. What that is? That's Science of Jurassic World on Monday. No, Sunday, tomorrow, whatever. I don't know.
Tomorrow.
No, I'm on a different one.
Tomorrow,
Thank you. So there's a whole thing right now. You may have heard it. There's a team of a Korean genetics team with the help of who, by the way, who's leading it, who's had all of his grants and everything taken away for unethical things. He did successfully clone dogs, which is interesting. He, along with the Northeastern Federal University of Siberia, they are claiming that they will be able to clone a mammoth, and 10 years ago they said they could do it in 20. 10 years later, no, not even. The problem is, there's two ways to do it. You can either do a true cloning, where you would have to find an intact cell of a mammoth, and then put that into an ovum from the closest living ancestor, which would be an Indian elephant. The only problem is Indian elephants go into must. They produce fertile ovum very rarely. And Dolly the sheep, for example, the famous cloned sheep, something like 870 tries, and 12 took. 2 went to full term, 1 was stillborn, and then Dolly. We don't have 870 Indian elephant eggs or anything like that. So the closest thing that they're thinking about doing now is using a piece-together primigenius woolly mammoth genome and inserting it into embryonic Indian elephants. So you end up with this weird kind of CRISPR chimera of not a mammoth, but it would be a Indian elephant expressing mammoth-like genes. The only problem with all of this is that these animals are extinct, and, like you were saying, they're herd animals. The idea of just cloning a mammoth and going, ta-da, here's your mammoth. It would just be in a zoo or in a museum or something like that going, I hate myself, die.
They have that actually happen. There is a zoo in Japan. It's very sad. There is an elephant that is on its own. And I don't, like, a lot of people thought, like, oh, this thing is psychotic. You can't really do that for animals. This is one of the few times I would say, no, that animal is probably clinically insane by elephant standpoint. It is angry. It thrashes at everything. It hates everyone. It's so lonely and scared. Like, that's what happens when you don't consider an animal's cost. Like, we don't consider that. It's not the same thing of, like, oh, well, we didn't do it right. Like, we don't know what these things truly ate. We don't have that plant anymore.
No, we don't.
We have on substitutes, and the substitutes might not cut it. Like, you can't, like, bringing it back to life, like, well, that's more your thing. Keeping it alive in our own mind, I'd be like, no, I can't even imagine. Like, also, would it come out with white hair or just kind of patchy like a year? I don't know how the hair would transplant.
Right, and that would be weird. And yeah, but you're absolutely right. The mammoth steppe, the environment, the paleo environment they are from, is completely and totally extinct. The main forbs and small plant material that they were eating does not exist anymore in the Siberian tundra. So we're going to have to find a nutritious substitute for this, magic mammoth. It's going to slowly go insane. It's completely and totally hysterically unethical.
I have a question for the vertebrate people. So, insects that eat plants and stuff usually have gut bacteria to help them digest all of that stuff. Would your mammoth need that as well? And you would also
absolutely
need that as well?
This thing would not be a mammoth, right? It would just be an elephant that had some
Mammoth
mammoth-like
tree.
quality.
Well,
It's very
depends on
hirsute mammoth.
For the sake of like putting it all like simple, let's just call it Carl. Let's call this thing Carl. It's Carl.
It depends how Carl was made. If Carl was done using a full nuclear transfer, then it's a mammoth.
That's true.
If it's the chimera, it's Carl. It would be a pachyderm with mammoth expressions.
So bringing it back from Carl to Frankenstein, which is in theory a human. In theory, yes. So we've already kind of gone down some really dark paths here. I'm not gonna lie. Like, what do we owe Frankenstein's monster?
We have a policy at a lot of AZA zoos and aquariums. There's a reason we don't feed live food to animals. One of it is that the animals can't hurt. The other is, has anyone here seen those videos of like a rat being friends with a mouse after it tried to get fed? They're cute and adorable, but what that would mean in an AZA facility would mean that, well, it's alive still. Now we have to treat it just like any other AZA animal. The reason I say this is because no matter, like, we have a responsibility if we are going to go down this path of humanity. I feel that we have that responsibility. Like, guess what? You made it. You better darn well take care of it. Like, you better do that job right because it's important, not just for that animal's sake, for the sake of, well, honestly, science, the surrounding area. I mean, you have, like, let's say they created Carl and they didn't take good care of him and that thing goes insane. That's not just bad for that animal. That's also going to set science back a long way, credibility-wise. It's going to, like, imagine the news. Imagine, like, any Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, the first article you're going to see is, scientists made psycho elephant goes insane. And we laugh, but then it's just going to throw us back. Like, it's, a lot of people feel that scientists, like, there's the movie stereotype that scientists don't have ethics, that we don't have feelings for our creation, and that, like, we just do things because it's fun and silly, and we want to prove how smart we are as well. I don't know why that accent was British, but the point is,
we do not do that.
Yeah, we don't. We love our stuff, and a lot of people ask us, well, how can you work at a zoo and love animals? Like, simple, because these are living creatures that I care for with better quality than I feed my own body. These animals get better food and better treatment and more hugs than I ever will. Like, it's really, like, it's one of those things, like, to let people know, like, we do have a responsibility for taking care of the animals. If they're in a zoo or an aquarium, I would put that same responsibility. If Frankenstein was in the next habitat over, he's going to get his Lady Frankenstein. He's going to get, I don't know, like a tire swing.
Hey now.
Story time.
I think the Lady Frankenstein should have some agency in them.
Of course. No, that's the thing. He might be part of the species survival plan. We don't just throw a female in. There's a courtship involved, and if it doesn't take, well, we try and find another one.
So, I mean, he's also going to need dating tips.
Again, that's what putting on the rinse is for.
That's candlelight dinners. You fire back. It sucks.
All right. So now that we've turned this around and I feel better, let's open it up to some questions. And if you ask questions, please speak them into the microphone. It is better for accessibility and also for the podcast.
Given that Carl is basically an Indian elephant, how much better would it be if you kept it with other Indian elephants that would be in your social structure?
That's interesting because, again, that's uncharted territory. You have no idea which genes you're going to take and not take, but you also have to remember the Indian elephants have to acknowledge it, not the other way around. If they're just seeing this kind of patchy version of themselves running over, the group might not accept it. The mother might turn it away, and then it's just going to be raised by people, which then defeats the whole purpose.
Well, and also, Carl is supposed to be cold tolerant, and so that might mean that he can't handle heat very well, so he might not be very well adapted to the environment that the Indian elephants like.
And I mean, to bring it background from Carl to Frankenstein, it should be noted that in the book, Adam, the monster, air quotes, actually does attempt to make friends. He, like, really puts some effort in there, learning language and trying to get to know people, and he, like, carefully approaches one guy and is like, hi, can we like, hang out sometime? And then the other humans come in and freak out. And he gets socially rejected.
I mean, if a tiger broke out from the zoo and it was still highly social and it came up to you looking for pats, most of you would hopefully run. I mean, you can't blame him for that. Again, we can always just blame Frankenstein.
Yeah. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, a failure of parenting. Next question.
I would totally pet the tiger.
Bye-bye then. Nice going again.
So, in Frankenstein, the monster, Adam, actually has very good human intelligence. Actually, he calls himself a separate species, but he's made of human-esque. When dealing with that kind of thing scientifically, other sci-fi have touched on this. Isn't a huge ethic problem. Like, this isn't just like a fish or a tiger. This is something that's human-esque. Wouldn't that create a whole other batch of problems as well?
Oh, it's an ethical nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like not even. It's like not only is he procuring parts for Adam
Without consent
in naughty ways, he is now creating something with, and remember that brain is from somebody else, so it's never really touched on if there are latent memories or anything of the, how our brains work. I'm still not quite sure. But this is an ethical minefield.
You could also have the Monsanto situation where if you created it, you get to have the rights over it. So that's another ethical minefield. Because they're currently, if there are farmers working with this debate, like, hey, wait a minute, we bought these seeds. Yes, but we invented that plant. So you have to do it the way we say so because we own it. And that's just another ethical minefield you have to walk through. Human-esque or not, would the law stand? Well, he was made in a laboratory by this crazy weirdo, so I guess he belongs to him.
I think I think there are current laws and regulations that is not the case. Like with with in vitro fertilization and such, you can argue that those embryos are created in the lab, but they are the property of the parents, and there are right now ongoing legal battles over whether or not those embryos are persons.
Well, and not to mention the issues that we came up with, squishy brain parts. That brain did come from somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And all the parts did, so technically you have a shareholders association for one animal.
The HOA on that, the HOA meetings have to be a nightmare.
I'm sorry, Dr. Frankenstein, that is my husband's arm.
But I'm also wondering
the
about...
The Council of Frankenstein will now vote all in favor of teaching you to dance. Say aye. Motion carries.
I would also like to talk about the brain. Can we talk about identity? Frankenstein, the monster comes to life. Adam comes to life, and he appears to be as a newborn. He has no language. He has, he just wants to find love, whatever, as it were. But in theory, I mean, he might have someone else's memories or someone else's sense of self.
That was something I wanted to ask about the head transplant thing.
Yeah.
It's like, this is like a weird, your grandmother's broom, scenario. Are you still the same person? Because it's a head on a totally different body. That's not...
Well,
right? Yeah, body dysphoria from hell.
Well, from my guys' perspective, honestly, the body's probably still going to be paralyzed because we don't know how to repair spinal cords in people who they already belong to. So, from his perspective, I'm not sure that his head being on a different body would give him a substantively different experience of life. So, his sense of self would probably be the same.
I mean, just go full cyborg.
Thank you!
Yeah, absolutely. Just a breathing box and tubes and the... Come on.
I don't know how the human brain works, but I can certainly work Windows 10. Let's do it!
Right!
Alright. The sense of self has been a problem, though, for people who get face transplants, for instance.
That weirds me out.
That their faces have been deformed, and so they get face transplants, not merely just to make them look better, but a lot of times these people, they don't have noses, so they have to devise things to keep the brain from being exposed to the outside world. They sometimes, may not have jaws, so they can't eat properly. They don't have lips, so they can't, even keep liquids and things in. So these face transplants are really transforming, their ability to it's transformative in that way, and then you look in the mirror and you do look different. But already those people have had this experience where their faces have been, completely destroyed.
Right.
And so, this actually gets them closer to feeling more like themselves.
That's cool.
I want to move on to another question. There's a person in a beautiful gold patterned outfit in the back there. Yes.
Hi. About the cadavers. Now, medical students use cadavers all the time, right? And they have to use formaldehyde just to work on them, don't they? Well, the whole thing about the Frankenstein issue and him cutting off all the different parts and stuff, as she said, they will have maggots in no time. So I always wondered, and I love Frankenstein, how in the world did that work? I know it's a book, I know imaginations have to run wild, but wouldn't it be like totally rotted and the maggots took over and the body parts would smell of formaldehyde if he had formaldehyde back then?
What he probably had instead was actually, I would say, ethanol, if anything. And I
That's why he
assume.
feared fire.
Well, and Adam Flambe. I would assume also he did not preserve the parts in ethanol because the monster was described as being gigantically huge, and ethanol causes severe shrinkage. So,
How big
teeny
was he
monster.
before? Maybe he's even bigger.
Oh, cold. So, one of the latest Frankenstein ones, Victor with Harry Potter and Professor X.
Yes.
They mentioned in the movie, it's like, oh, we don't have enough blood. Let's use 3 hearts and 2 sets of lungs.
What is this, the Space Marines from Warhammer 40?
Right? But they meant, like, how the hell would that work?
yeah,
That's a
this
big
is
chest
a case where quantity simply cannot replace quality.
Kind of going back all the way to the beginning of the panel, when you guys were talking about how adding body parts from different bodies together and how they reject each other and that sort of thing. With modern science and people, like having ears on rats and then transplanting them to humans, in that sort of respect, is that easier to then build a Frankenstein monster if you have pieces that are coming from not necessarily human parts?
So that's called something called xenotransplantation, and people are working on that because there is a severe shortage of human donor organs. That's probably the biggest problem in transplant medicine. And so the idea is that we're already slaughter pigs, for instance, for food. So why not be able to transplant some of those organs and solve that problem? So the problem is that pigs are a different species, and they contain a lot of sugars on their proteins that the human immune system can react against. They have lots of what are called endogenous retroviruses that might infect a human cell, and then it could jump around and break genes in the human, which would cause problems. So people are using this tool called CRISPR, which, if you don't know what it is, it's a molecular biology tool that is part of a bacterial immune system that helps to fight off viruses that people have now engineered so that you can basically point to any gene that you want in the genome and it will go and make change in that gene. So they've been using this to get rid of those endogenous retroviruses, and they can get rid of up to 60-some in one go. And they've been using it also to try and engineer the pigs to be a better match for humans. But, we're still a ways away on that. And you will need these improved anti-rejection strategies in order to
lot of these ethical issues you talk about could extend to other forms of artificial life, so AI, designer organisms down the road. That's one of the concerns.
So here's one that we're doing with insects. You can actually tap you can put electrodes into the cockroach and into the cockroach brain and then walk it around with an Xbox controller. And then there's another one.
That is very popular in high school classrooms, actually.
Popular.
You can buy that.
Also, just started with beetles, because the problem with cockroaches is that they're using is they don't fly. So naturally, like, oh, now we need to make something that flies. So now they started doing the same thing with beetles, but now with an Xbox controller, just like with a regular remote control. And a lot of people ask about the ethics of mind controlling these insects like that. And to which I answer, it's already happening in nature. And if you're interested in learning more about that, come to our panel on Monday. But basically, there are fungus, different types of fungi, and there's also these things called parasitic wasps that will actually chemically change the brain, and so they can control the insect. They can make it walk into places that it probably wouldn't walk. They can make it get eaten by things that it probably shouldn't get eaten by because it's out in the open. And there's even a case of a wasp that literally walks a cockroach like a dog to its death. And so my answer is, if we're talking about bugs, it's already happening in nature. So I guess now we can go up to things with vertebrates, because we don't deal with ethics and entomology. Like, no one cares if you kill 100 cockroaches, so we don't deal with ethics.
My only question with that control thingy, would it run smoother with a keyboard and mouse setup, or can I use like those anyone remember the Donkey Kong bongo controllers from the GameCube? Can I try using those? If it's unethical to do it, I might as well just take this the full way through.
I'm getting all my own Rock Band controllers.
Yeah.
But Goat Simulator? I want Beetle Sim now. VR headset, you're flying around.
Maybe an espionage application.
Dude,
that'd be sick.
The ethical things coming to that is like, oh, who would notice a fly? Who would literally notice a cockroach on the wall? So it's now like a spying thing that people are worried about.
If it's on the wall, run away from it anyway.
Well, no one really cares about what the beetle thinks.
And on that note, nobody give these guys funding to create a spy fly. Thank you all so much. No spy fly.
Spy fly, spy fly, spy fly, spy fly, spy fly.
Get out of my room. Oh, yeah. If you'd like to learn more about Lucas Hernandez, Nancy Miorelli, Tina Saey, and Trevor Valle, we've linked to more information about them and about Frankenstein at scienceforthepeople.ca. You'll also find links to Twitter, Facebook, and iTunes, where you can listen to past episodes, subscribe to the show, or leave a review. You can also find our Patreon page, where you can support more shows like this one with a monthly donation. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on Science for the People.
Science for the People is produced by Rochelle Saunders and edited by Ryan Bromsgrove. Helen Quivalon is our publishing liaison. We get research help from Josh Witten and consulting support from Desiree Schell. Our frequently seen guest hosts are Marion Kilgour, Anika Hazra, and Jessica Yaros. Our theme song is called Binary Consequence, and it was written and recorded by Fractal Pattern. Science for the People is entirely listener-supported. You can find us on Patreon, where you can support us with monthly donations in any amount, or you can send us a one-time donation in any amount via the donate page of our website. Science for the People is created in partnership with the Skepchick Network, a collection of blogs, podcasts, and video content focusing on the intersection of science, popular culture, politics, and social justice. You can find out more about Skepchick at skepchick.org. The show is hosted by science news writer Bethany Brookshire and me, Rochelle Saunders.